Hi, my name is Vanessa Smith, and I am a Seattle-based wedding planner and excited today to talk to you about how to choose the perfect dining style for your wedding. Whether you choose a buffet, a plated, or a family-style dinner, it will have a huge impact on the overall flow of your event and the guest experience. So this is an important decision. Let's get started talking about the different dining styles and what that means to your event. First, I should give you a little bit of background on what each dining style means. Buffets are when food is set out on a table for guests to come to and pick and choose what they would like. Buffets usually require chauffeurs to keep the food warm, or platters and bowls for room temperature or cold dishes. Family style is when the food is brought to the tables for guests to help themselves to by waitstaff, and usually the platters are passed around the table for guests to help themselves too. Plated meals is when waitstaff bring individual plates to each guest. Usually, guests would pre-select an entree, like do they want chicken or beef, and then that plate is brought to them at their specific place setting. Next, we'll talk about the pros and cons of each of these dining styles. Let's start with buffets. Buffets are usually what most of us think of when it comes to dining at a wedding. There are a lot of pros to a buffet, so let's start there. Buffets are an easy way to feed a lot of people. The big platters and chauffeurs allow a lot of guests to get through the buffet and get food rather quickly. They also allow guests to pick and choose from the options presented to what they want to eat and the portion size that they want to eat as well. Buffets are usually very budget friendly and help control the overall expense of your wedding. Buffets can also be used as a form of decor. If you have a really cute nook that you want to feature, put your buffet there. It fills a lot of space in a big venue and can kind of help decorate without additional costs. Now let's talk about the few cons of a buffet. Buffet lines can kind of be a nuisance, and they can take some time. You have to look at the positive of it, which was guests will be mingling and mixing with each other while in the buffet line, but you definitely do want to consider that your first tables will usually be done with their food before the last tables have even made it through the buffet line. You also have a risk of running out of food at a buffet. As I previously mentioned, guests can take as much food as they'd like, and it's really hard for caterers to be able to judge what is exactly needed to make sure that every guest will get a full plate of food at your event. So talk to your caterer, ask how they plan for this, and how prepared they are to handle extra hungry guests. Buffets can sometimes look pretty picked over rather quickly, so I also do recommend asking your caterer to do smaller amounts of food in the chauffeurs or platters so that they're changed out more often and don't look as picked over as quickly. There's always a chance of cross-contamination or the spread of germs at a buffet too. Cross-contamination can be a big deal if you have a lot of guests with allergies or dietary restrictions that you need to keep in mind. So those are all some cons that you should weigh out before selecting a buffet. Next, we're going to be talking about family style dining. Next, let's talk about the pros of family style. Family style dining is one of my favorite styles of dining. It allows your guests to get seated at these beautifully set tables where all of the items that you selected are included, including the entree plate set down, which is a big deal in the elevated look of your tables. It also still allows your guests to be able to pick and choose what goes on their plate and the portion size, which is appropriate for them. Family style dining also doesn't require your guests to stand in line, so it limits the amount of the time that it will take out of your overall event where guests are seated at the dining tables. Family style has a really nice warmth to it. It gets people mixing and mingling at the tables, and as I mentioned before, it has this very kind of Thanksgiving vibe to it, which who doesn't like Thanksgiving? It's kind of a fun pro. Your guests will also get to enjoy the beautifully presented food that your chef has prepared for you and enjoy the aesthetics of each dish as it's brought to the table. Family style really does have a lot of pros, and it's why it's my favorite style of dining for a wedding. With every pros list, there also has to be some cons, and family style dining does have a few cons. Family style dining will usually be a little bit more expensive than a buffet and require some additional staff and a lot of rentals. You've got to consider that you'll now need individual platters for each table for each dish on your menu. That can add up. Family style dining also requires a fair amount of room on the tables, so you'll have to limit your centerpieces to make sure there's room for guests to put the platters down once they've made it all the way around. Sometimes the family style platters can be a lot for some guests to handle, so if you have a lot of elderly attending your wedding or kids, make sure you have the waitstaff there to be able to help pass those platters through those guests and make sure they get some of those delicious dishes. Family style dining is always easier when the size of tables, meaning the number of each guest at a table, is similar table to table. So if you're doing round tables and you have 8 to 10 guests per table, family style dining is usually a great match. We're going to next consider the pros and cons of plated. Plated meals are definitely the most chic and elevated option. There's something very special about going to an event that has a plated meal. It's very relaxing to sit down at the tables and enjoy some great conversation with your fellow table mates while you wait for your food to come. Plated meals also allow your guests to enjoy the beautiful presentation the chef has done of each dish as the waitstaff brings it to the tables for your guests to enjoy. Plated meals also don't require any buffet lines, and again, it really brings it that relaxing feeling of the dining experience. The other big benefit of plated meals is that you have plenty of time to toast. While your guests are waiting to get their meals, it's a great time for a welcome speech by the bride and groom or the father of the bride's toast. Make sure to use that time as part of your event plan, and so that your guests are kind of entertained while they're waiting to get served. There are a few cons to plated meals that you definitely do want to consider. The biggest one is the amount of work that it's going to require on you. Your caterer will need to know the exact number of each entree that you need and who is having that dish. This requires a lot of tracking and escort cards to be made for each guest. Please consider that when deciding to have a plated meal. It is a fair amount of work. Another con to plated meals is that it does take time. Your first table will have been well done eating before the last table is served. Plating all of those individual plates is quite an undertaking, and it, just adds to your timeline of your event. Also, take into consideration that not every guest eats the same amount of food, so you may have some guests still hungry at the end of the plated dinner. You may want to consider late night snacks or adding some additional food options later in the event. Plated meals also do limit the table decor or the table aesthetics that you can have out. You can choose a beautiful charger if you're doing a plated meal, but you can't preset the entree plates. You also have limited options when it comes to napkin folds, because a lot of times when we're doing a plated meal, we like to plan to have the salads preset to cut down on dining time. As I've mentioned, each dining style has a great list of pros and cons. This is definitely a big decision when it comes to planning your wedding, because whatever dining style you choose will have a big impact on the overall flow of your event. However, don't stress it too much. Just remember, good food is good food, and guests will enjoy eating at your wedding regardless of the way it's served. Congratulations on your engagement, and good luck planning. Make sure to like and subscribe to this video and our channel, because we have so much more to share with you. Talk to you soon. Bye.